Mirella, I'm in trouble. I lost my wallet and phone, and I need 100 euro to buy a bus ticket home. Can you send it ASAP? I'll pay back as soon as I get back. Oh my God, this is in a text I received on my phone. And here another email. Hi Joe, I need you to process an urgent payment immediately. We are finalizing an important deal and I need 50k euro transferred to our new supplier today. This is time sensitive and I trust you to handle it discreetly. Here are the payment details 12367 ABC. Please confirm once the transfer is done. I am in a meeting, so I cannot take calls. Just handle this ASAP. Best, Jack Dorsey, CEO of Blog. Hi everyone, I'm Mirela Ciobanu, lead editor with the papers, and I hope to get you a bit scared by now because of these messages. On the surface, these messages might seem legitimate, but they are not. These are common scams that rely on urgency, authority, secrecy, and advanced social engineering tactics powered by AI. Scammers manipulate emotions to pressure individuals into making impulsive financial decisions. I'm happy to say that today I'm joined by Alin Becheanu, who is chairman of the Romanian Association for Preventing and Combating Fraud and head of fraud prevention at ING. Hi, Alin. I'm happy to have you here today.
Hi, Mirela, and thank you for the invite.
Yeah, I hope I didn't scare you too much with my intro and my messages.
Well, I must say that we have this kind of messages on a daily basis. So for me, at least, it's something that I'm used to it. But I would say that for regular consumer, that would be something that would definitely attract their attention.
Yeah, so today we are going to discuss more about the evolving fraud landscape in banking, also the use of AI deepfakes in this space, and also we are going to share advice on how to stay protected, both for consumers and both for businesses. So first would like to start with learning more about your professional background. Can you share us a bit of how you started in this space?
Well, definitely. I started as a police officer working for the organized crime unit here in Bucharest, Romania. And subsequently, I moved to the private sector to several banks where I was either head of anti-money laundering department or fraud prevention. Since 2014, we started an NGO association. It's more like a think tank, that the Association for Preventing and Countering Frauds, that has the objective of creating a bridge between the private and public sector in order to align on several aspects such as how to combat more efficient frauds, cybersecurity, and cybercrime, and money laundering. But also to, let's say, create more awareness among the consumers. And when I say consumer, it's not just private individual, but also companies.
Yeah, when you say here, create more awareness, I think that, fraud fighters have an enormous responsibility that makes this role more demanding. If you are to think, what are some issues that related to financial crime that keep you up at night, what would those be?
Well, I must say that for me, at least, I sleep like a baby most of the times. But for the nights that, let's say, somehow I'm puzzled with the things that are happening, on my agenda is at least one. That's customer education or customer awareness when it comes to online. Because what we've seen, at least for the past years, that this enhanced digitalization of all processes, no matter the companies or financial institutions and so on, have increased significantly. Yeah, and on the same side, unfortunately, the customer awareness or the knowledge regarding how to use the products, the services, and the online in general, on the consumer side, unfortunately, did not keep the pace with this increased digitalization. So I think this is a concern that, unfortunately, you don't have to be, let's say, very sophisticated when you commit a crime, but you need to be more, let's say, willing to give a lot of, let's say, scenarios to the potential victims in order to manipulate them and in order to make them make the transfer or make the payments or give you the, let's say, the details, the financial details, their personal details, and so on. Yeah? So the keyword is manipulation.
So yeah, you mentioned manipulation techniques. Then again, that we need to educate our readers, but maybe the consumers, maybe they are not even aware of what are those challenges. So I also have this feeling that this manipulation is also in, so digitalization enhanced processes, but also enhanced manipulation and nefarious things, let's say. And to make a segue in my next question related to AI, that is without doubt the buzzword in today's world and technology, this can be used for good and bad purposes. Now let's start with the challenges. What are the most common types of fraud related to AI? So what are the most types of fraud that are, that customers need to be aware of?
Well, I think first we need to understand how the, let's say, the fraud has evolved for the past year. So if, let's say, maybe 10 years ago, we've seen that there are like organized criminal groups that would actually create the malware and deploy it and make it happen for, let's say, for consumers, and especially the target was maybe banks, customers, and so on. Right now, we've seen that it's evolved to another level. It is like fraud as a service. So there are people that are creating the, let's say, the fake page for phishing, the scheme, the fraud scheme, maybe the process of, let's say, how to manipulate the customers and so on. And then this entire business is sold online via dark web to all potential buyers. So this is why we've seen for the past years, let's say, a constant level of attacks, no matter it's, I don't know, from phishing to investment scam, to marketplace scam, to all sorts of frauds that are happening. Yeah. So this is why we've seen also an increase in the level, in the number of victims that are at this point very vulnerable to the fact that they don't have the necessary knowledge in order to protect online, or maybe what are the risks online. And if I would just give a couple of examples, phishing, the most, let's say, common type of online fraud, where you get a message, no matter it's an SMS, an email, WhatsApp, and so on, with a link that says, your account has been restricted. Please enter on this link in order to unblock your account or something like that. The only thing that we need to keep in mind is that never, ever, any bank or any, I would say, company has this kind of feature in order to send you via a link, let's say, this kind of message, and make you enter the link and input your credential there. Yeah, this is something that we need to keep in mind. And this regular phishing has evolved from, there were like a couple of things that we could detect, like poor grammar, like, the way that was written, the text, because it was not something that was native to that specific language. It was more something that was translated with Google Translate or something like that, and now has evolved to a more sophisticated level. The messages are much better grammar, better wording, and so on. And, at some point, it makes you believe that it can be a genuine message. Yeah. So this kind of evolvement from like basic messages to more sophisticated messages. But I think it's more about the way that these fraudsters are investing money into the actual fraud. So I'm giving you another example. Last year, I think we've seen a deepfake scam that happened in Hong Kong with a significant loss, like $25 million. And the fraudsters, what they did was actually create, using AI, a deepfake video with the voice of the CFO of the company saying to the colleagues that they need to transfer the amount to some accounts. And it paid off. Yeah, I mean, they were tricked, they sent the money, and the company suffered a loss of 25 million. But again, I think the cost for creating this video, the voice, and so on, was significant also on the fraudster side. So you can see from basic stuff that can be done, I mean, but I don't know, any sort of basic AI, yeah, enhance the messages, the grammar, and so on, to a more sophisticated level, such as creating deepfake videos, good ones, not, let's say, poor ones, with also the voice attached of the person. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting that fraud works in many ways. So on the other hand, we have the message that we receive via the phone, and we access a link, and then we
Yeah.
might install something bad. But then it's also we get tricked. So it's our mind believing the stuff, or I don't know, investing due to our greed. We want to invest in something to have a quick gain, and then the fraudsters have access to our account, and then you have this investment scams. But
Absolutely. And I would just add one thing. I think for all these scams in general, the fraudsters are just, let's say, looking for two things. One is to give you a sense of, let's say, happiness, enhanced happiness, that it was your, is now it's your opportunity to become rich. So this is why you get these investment scams or whatever that say, I'm going to double your money in just 2 days or 1 week or something like that. Or on the other side, the second one is to make you feel afraid. Yeah, so fear. Your account will be blocked. You're gonna get a fine. The police or the prosecutor is gonna send you a fine, or you did some sort of a crime online or whatever. All these kind of things are somehow connected to the fact that they want to create a sense of fear. So you would actually, let's say, detach your rational part of the brain from your emotional one, and you immediately say, yeah, what do I need to do to fix this, so that is somehow the mindset. But my advice is, in general, when you get either too much happiness, it's your lucky day or something like that, or you get scared, I think just take a break, like a couple of minutes break, and reconsider, why is this happening to me? Can I ask somebody? Can I ask an expert? Or is this something that could actually happen or not? So just do this, and I think you have more than 50% chances of not becoming a victim.
Yeah, in your role of head prevention at ING, you have this role within the Romanian
Yes.
geography territory. So I'm now curious, when you think about fraud-related challenges, what are some that are specific to Romania, and what are some? I mean, if there are some comparison with what's happening across the globe, if there's where are there similarities and where are differences?
Yeah, I can respond you with my hat of being the chair of the Association for Preventing and Countering Frauds, as I have the experience from also my colleagues, and I can give you a better flavor when it comes to this kind of question. I think we see more of a wave process. So it's like T+1. So we see, like, I don't know, bank employee impersonation in the western part of Europe or UK or something like that. Then, like a couple of months later, we see the same kind of thing in Romania or the eastern part. So I think it's something that is starting in the western part, and it just continues based like a tsunami, if you can call it like this, and it's spreading to the rest of the Europe and so on, and also Asia, and so on and so on. Yeah, and I think the most interesting part is the fact that these fraudsters are targeting, I would say, all victims based on social media. Yeah, so most of the scams are generated from the social media, because I would say most of the people have a social media account, and on your regular feed you see, stay home and gain money, or would you like to double your money in 2 days or something like that? Just click here. And most of the times, everything starts with just a click. Just enter your details. Somebody will contact you and tell you it's your lucky day. You get this fantastic opportunity, and you must take it right now, because it's like this day opportunity is not going to repeat it the next day, and so on.
Yeah, and I'm curious, with this social media, are more targeted, more, let's say, affluent, rich people, or it doesn't matter?
I think what we've seen, that the scenarios that the fraudsters are using are somehow customized for each type of customer. From like I would say medium, then high end, and maybe like basic customers, So no matter you have like in your account 1,000 euro or 10,000 or 15 millions, I think they have fraud schemes for everybody, So
Okay.
it starts with let's say with small amounts in general, and then they raise the bar and usually say, today we have a great opportunity. You invested like 200 euro. Today we have, let's say, a great opportunity to invest 10,000 euro. Would you be interested? Because you are going to just double the money in 1 week. And it really depends on if let's say, the victim bites the hook, So if
Yeah.
they say, yes, I'm interested, and they would just increase the amount and so on. Yeah.
Yeah, and the opportunities, as you mentioned, are built in these fraud as a service farms. From statistics that where are most of these fraud as a service services or farms mostly located across the globe? What are areas that are spreading attacks, let's say?
Well, again, I think that would be a very good question for the law enforcement in general, because they are the ones that are doing the investigation. But I can tell you that we've seen people with, let's say, call centers, because everything starts with a call center. You need to have people that are calling the potential victims, because this is how it all starts, either by a call or by texting or something like that. So we've seen a lot of the so-called fake uh, call centers that are calling customers from the Eastern Europe in general, but also I think Asia and so on. You get a lot of this kind of potential locations where people are hired in order to be part of the scheme. In some of the cases, I would say that they are not even aware that they are part of any fraud scheme. It's just a matter of lack of knowledge that they are doing something that is being illegal. Yeah.
Yeah. So in the beginning, you mentioned that, customer awareness is important. We'll also talk about this topic later on.
Yeah.
But also it is important, for before a customer is educated, that a bank, in a way, is the first step in safeguarding this space. I mean, in preventing a bad thing from happening, in
Right.
the victim being tricked into doing something. And for a bank to do this, it's also important to be able to distinguish between legitimate customers that want transactions to be, processed instantly, everywhere, anywhere, at no cost. And then they have to, distinguish between these ones, legitimate and the illegitimate ones. How can they do this? What solutions are there?
Um, um, Coming back to your question, that the banks are the first layer of defense, I would say it should be more like a joint responsibility, because no matter how the banks are, how much they invest into having like fantastic systems or functionalities and so on, as long as the customer has the credentials and he's just giving the credentials to anyone based on various fraud scenarios, and she's just giving it away, I think it's kind of difficult to protect all the customers. Yeah. So it should be more like a joint responsibility that the customer needs to actually safeguard his credentials all the time in order to make sure that somehow you diminish let's say, this kind of incidents. Yeah. Because if you are going to just give to everybody, again, I think the number of events will definitely increase. On the same side, the banks do have responsibilities, and I think let's say, the legislation that has been enforced, especially in EU, gave a lot of, let's say, I would call it opportunities at this moment for the banks to invest more in the part of safeguarding the customer. Yeah, from monitoring, real-time monitoring systems to creating functionalities, like basic functionalities, such as, just imagine, instant notification on your payment. You get a push notification when your transaction is being performed. Yeah, so you can actually go instantly and see, I'm not making any transaction. Why do I get messages from my bank saying that transactions are being done at this moment? Yeah, on my account. To let's say, new features such as geolocation and so on. So imagine that when you log into your internet banking account, you have a mobile, and then if you see a transaction in I don't know, in Barcelona, in Spain, and right now you are being in Rome, it's kind of difficult to actually be in two places in the same time. Yeah. So this kind of features would give you the benefit of saying, this is something fishy and we need to put on hold the transaction from Barcelona because definitely I'm not being there. So you can actually stop the transaction. You can put it on hold and contact the customer and say, yeah, is this your transaction or not? Most probably not. So this will be a fraud. So you can actually block this. And other functionality that would give you more, let's say, more layers of defense in order to protect the customers in this kind of frauds. Yeah. But also, I would say the focus should be also on the part of the education of the customer. You need to have regular campaigns that would give the customer the knowledge that, right now is happening this kind of fraud typology. You mentioned at the beginning the one that a friend sent you via WhatsApp or a message saying, instantly, please send me right now 20 or 100 euro because I need it urgently. Yeah. For example, for this kind of fraud cases, you need to make the customers more aware, either by placing messages on your website, on your social media account as a bank, and making regular campaigns and so on, in order for people to know what can happen. But also giving them more power, empower the customer in order to take decision. I will give you an example on this one. On the local market, I think more than, I would say, 2 years ago, was launched a service that is called Show Beneficiary Name for the account. So it's more like an IBAN name check. So when you actually make a domestic transaction from one bank to another, it will automatically give you into the banking application the account holder name. Of course, in order to make sure that you are sending the money to the right person. So in your case, if you would just input the IBAN account into the banking application, you most probably you would have seen that the name of the person that has the account does not actually match with your friend's name. Yeah, so that would be a red flag and say, oh, why do I have to send to my friend in this account and not to her personal account?
Yeah, and since you mentioned that when it comes to defense, we need more layers, technology, education. Yeah. And then I'm thinking also about this idea of collaboration. And you mentioned that one of the channels where fraud starts is social media. Yeah. Has social media engaged in collaborating with financial institutions and law enforcement to detect and stop this type of scams?
Let's say that we see some interesting developments recently in terms that we see some campaigns, and I think either as a consumer of social media, you can actually get on the social media feed some awareness campaigns saying, make sure that you are not being a victim of a fraud and just look at the beneficiary name, make sure that you are sending money to the right person, you are not making an investment right now based on online advice. You should be actually talking to an expert and so on. And I think we can see some let's say some steps in actually being social media more involved in how to prevent frauds. But I think there are many more steps that can be covered by social media in order to make sure that they actually do more prevention. And I would give you just one example. Imagine that all these fake ads are being sponsored. Yeah. So somebody is actually paying for this advertising, for this fake ad, in order to get promoted to so many people. Yeah. Like thousands, maybe millions and so on. So when you actually put a online ad, yeah, it should be something more like maybe a KYC process, just to identify the person that puts the ad there, asking for more identification and so on, in order to make sure that you are not actually promoting like deep fake videos or text to voice fake messages and so on. I mean, in order to make sure that the ad is actually something that to some extent you can say it's legit. It's not something that is a fake that would actually impact millions of people. Because again, I think coming back to the part of education, when you put like a text to voice to a VIP, like, I don't know, the prime minister or maybe someone like a famous actor and so on, and is promoting investment in some sort of great opportunity, that would give more credibility for the victim and say, if this is being recommended by the prime minister or by this famous person, then definitely it's something that I need to be part of it. Yeah. So if they would do this kind of KYC process, I would say that would be a great start. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And now we talked a lot about consumers.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about businesses. What should they know? How fraudsters can target businesses? Some of the cases indeed can be translated also, yeah, because businesses are
Yeah.
done by people, and transfers can also be like the CEO, yeah, case you mentioned in the beginning from Hong Kong. So, yeah, how can they be targeted by fraudsters?
Well, just imagine that, especially the SMEs, the small, medium companies, I would say they are the most vulnerable at this moment, considering the fact that in general, they need more knowledge, they need specialized people to deal with cyber attacks, fraud, online fraud, and so on, scams, and in general, just to create awareness among the, let's say, the employees when they get like a basic email, and saying, your account was blocked, or we just blocked your uh, Microsoft Office account. You need just click on this and we can get it fixed. Or your computer is not working properly. Enter on this link in order to enhance your speed, your computer speed, and so on. All these kind of fake messages and so on. It comes down to the fact that does that person has have the knowledge to actually understand the risk. What would happen if they just click on it and they would install a virus or malware, or would just give the credentials for the banking account and so on. So I think the first thing is to make sure that your employees are being aware of the online risk and they know how to respond to it. And I think a great service for this is the part of just making I would say, an exercise, just giving, there are specialized services that would be called ethical hackers, just make an
Simulate.
exercise. Yeah, just make an exercise and say, I would just give a fake phishing email to all of those employees and see how many of them are going to click on the message and install the whatever, or just see how would be the response rate on that. And I would say that would be a first start, to see how much exposure you have as a company, because your employees are not aware of what's happening. No? Again, that would be a first step. Second is how much we actually invest in our security. And I would say that most of the businesses have, I would say, online services. You can buy, you can have all kind of products from your company that are being sold online. Yeah. So the question is, do you protect the customer data, and do you actually protect the, let's say, the all this exchange of information that you do with your customers, and all this setup is somehow secured? That would be a second one, because as long as you have online services, that would give you an additional risk that you need to actually cover, either by having a robust system in place, or by outsourcing and giving it to specialized vendors and so on that are doing this on a daily basis. Yeah. And third would be something that I would call it like monitoring system, depending on the business, on your, let's say, activity. Are you doing any sorts of a monitoring of your activity, like from just monitoring basic stuff? How many attacks you had last month? Either it was like a ransomware or phishing attack or anything like that, like basic stuff, just trying to get this data, to monitoring your activity, saying how did I actually respond to these attacks, and how many of them were actually maybe successful, Do I need to do something even more, gets more specialized help and so on? Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice that for both consumers and businesses, I see that an important approach, yeah, is using different technology means, but the most importantly is the education, the awareness of
Absolutely.
consumers and employees. And also, I have this feeling that even for technology and for consumer, this idea of taking a breath and stop and analyzing a bit, because you might be using technology, but if you're not analyzing what used to happen in the past, you might never, yeah, learn from that experience and see it correctly.
Absolutely. But again, I would say another good question for the companies that have online services is, or maybe a website, is when was the last time that you do like a penetration test? Just make sure that you have all the patches, you have all the system updates and everything in order to make sure that you cannot become a victim of an attack.
Okay, so curiosity is also important, or
Absolutely.
yeah, being aware, wanting to learn.
Yep.
And speaking about yeah, learning, also this space payments financials have to deal with lots of regulations. If you
Yes.
are to highlight what are some key regulations that financial institutions should be aware of in 2025, what would those be?
Well, I would say that the plate is pretty much full with the PSR, the Payment Service Regulator, or maybe people call it as PSD3. That would be something that would create a lot of, let's say, noise at this moment, considering we don't have the final version, but there were many discussion on the topic, and I would say that so far the drafts of the document were not, let's say, focusing entirely on the root cause, but more on the effects. So maybe just to explain a little bit better, there was the discussion on the part of reimbursing the victims by the banks, and this is something that, from my uh, experience, I would say it's not the way to go forward. Why I'm saying this? Because this will make the process even more efficient, but efficient for the fraudster and not for the, let's say, for the law enforcement or for the banks or for the good guys, if I can call it like this. Yeah, because it will just make sure that customer would become more and more, even more, I would say, less responsible on their credential, on their interest, as long as they would say, yeah, okay, it happened, then I would just go to the bank and get reimbursed for my loss. But the logic is not that. I mean, nobody has like a special treasury where they can take the funds from and reimburse the customers. It's
Yeah.
more that it's going to be a loss on the bank side, but it's not again, it's not just about the loss. It's more on how the this loss would just actually make the process more profitable for the fraudsters and create less responsibility among the customers. Because again, I would say I'm not interested. I'm not that much interested in safeguarding my credentials or not becoming a victim, as long as I know that somebody would just reimburse me the money. Yeah. On the same side, I would say it would create a lot of work for the law enforcement agencies and so on, because I would just assume that the number of cases would just double or maybe even triple. Because again, right now we see a significant number of scam cases or online frauds and so on, considering all these measures that are being taken by the banks and also the responsibility on the customer. Yeah. But just take out from this equation the responsibility of the customer, because they will feel less responsible, and imagine what would happen. Double the losses and just make this process, this fraudulent process, more profitable and so on.
Yeah. And besides PSD3, what other regulation? DORA, maybe, I don't know.
Well, DORA, that would be also something interesting in terms of the, let's say, all the work that the financial institution need to do in order to implement it. But again, I think if they would just hope for the best on the PSR, that would be something that would really give more hope in terms of how we can actually protect the customer. Because again, I think that the interest right now is how do we do it in order to make sure that we protect the customer. And I think the focus should be on data exchange between the banks and with the law enforcement, in order to make sure that all this information, the intelligence that is gathered on both sides, is actually flowing much faster from one end to another. And I'm just going to give you a short example. Imagine that nowadays, I would say most of the, let's say, countries have a process in place that when a fraud is being committed, an investigation starts. But how the flow is, the information flow is actually done in most of the countries between the banks, the private sector, and the law enforcement, I would say it's more like a manual process, either paper-based or something similar. So the information is flowing. I wouldn't call it like a low speed, but somewhere between there, when actually the fraudsters are working with the speed of
communicating
light.
much better. Yeah.
Yes. And the process is how do we actually do it in order to make sure that when you have an online fraud, when the money are sent from one account to another in like seconds, you also have the information sent in a couple of seconds to the law enforcement in order to do what? Maybe to make a seize of the account, to block the account, and make sure that we can actually stop the money, because if we stop the money, that would be the first step in order to make sure that this process is not so profitable. Yeah, because these guys, the only thing that they care is the money. If you hit the money, if you follow the money and you hit the money, that would be something that it will actually stop the process. Yeah.
So, educate my customer, build systems that have data that is exchanged at a high speed, buying AI. I don't know. There are many decisions to take. If I were the CEO of a bank, where should I allocate my resources in 2025 to safeguard my consumers and businesses?
Good question. I would say maybe start with a loan in order to make sure that you have the necessary budget and cope with all these things. I'm just kidding right now. I would say that first of all, you need to have a process in place that I like to call it is fraud by design. So basically, when you actually launch new products, new services, are you making sure that you actually launch it with functionalities, features that would prevent fraudsters from making money out of it? And just imagine that in some of the cases, the same product is being used by tech savvies, but also by people with low digital education that are very vulnerable to being manipulated and, let's say, being abused and taking their credentials and being then seeing transaction on their account or making all sorts of things. So that would be the first one, making sure that you have this fraud by design process in place. Second is making sure that you have this data exchange being performed with the law enforcement and also with the local peers. Yeah, because we've seen that also with the new PSR, there will be some data exchange that would be allowed between financial institutions and also maybe telcos and so on, in order to make sure that the information flows much faster from one point to another. Yeah. And now, giving you a straight example, imagine that you get this phishing message, an SMS, from a regular number saying that your account has been blocked. What would be the first step? Just sending the link to the, let's say, to the vendor that is making the takedown of the site. Yeah, informing the host of the website, a link is being hosted on your server and so on. Please make sure that it's being taken down, and you need to have this somehow very fast. Second, you need to have the connection with the telco and saying, we've seen that this kind of messages are being sent from this number. Can you take a look at this? I would say maybe even better would be that the telco would do a sort of a monitoring process for the messages that are being sent bulk, saying, are there malicious messages or not, in order to make sure that we can also diminish the number of messages that are being sent to regular customers, based on the fact that, the goal is to make sure that you stop so many cases. But again, this will be like prevention. But even post factum, just sending this message to the telco saying take actions against this number that sent this message, that would be also an additional step. So all these connections need to be somehow prioritized in order to make sure that the speed of reaction is much, much faster than what we've seen right now. And third, but again, I think this is also very important, is the part of education. And education is not something that you do it based on online course with the employees once a year, that everybody's just click, click, click. And at the end, everybody is happy because, we are happy we did this
certification.
Course. Yes, certification, and we are all safe right now. I think this is an ongoing process that needs to be embedded into the actual culture of the organization, making sure that the messages, the way that we conduct business is aligned with all these values, like safeguarding yourself, safeguarding the companies, and so on, making sure that you know on what you're clicking, make sure that you are not using your device, your work device for, browsing social media, and personal email and so on, and on the same side making payments from the same device, so because again, installing malware or any sort of other software on your device, like remote access, we've seen lately that it works very well to not actually creating a malware, as long as you manipulate the victim in order to give you access to his device using a remote access tool. Like AnyDesk, TeamViewer, AirDroid. There are a lot of tools that are being abused by the fraudsters, and taking, taking access on taking the control on the victim's device. And from their point on, they have access to everything, from your messages that you get, your information on the device, and in some of the cases, maybe to your banking account, as long as you even have the application installed and you actually log into your banking application, and after that you get full control.
And even
so at least these three too.
And even to the companies sometimes, because with this pandemics and hybrid way of working, or this intertwine, and then systems are too much connected.
Absolutely, yes.
And you want to mention, sorry, I interrupted, for the last thing after education, strategies for CEOs?
Well, again, I think the last thing is more on having the right people, because it's not just about having trained people. You need to have the right people. The person that is actually doing your strategy on prevention for online fraud, maybe cybersecurity and so on. You need to have the right people, because I've seen it works very well, this part, having a person that is doing like 3 jobs, being a compliance manager, anti-fraud manager, data protection, or whatever. So it's like one person doing a lot of jobs. If you do this kind of things, most probably you are very much vulnerable to becoming a victim, because you cannot have experts doing 3 jobs or 4 jobs on the same time. You need to have people that are doing this on a day-to-day basis, and they are experts in order to make sure that you get protected. And again, I think outsourcing or getting the right experts, that would be something that you need to look for. Yeah.
So fraud by design, data exchange, education, and having the experts. I want to end with this positive note. With exchanging advice, because I started on a scary note. So we need to conclude our discussion on a positive side. Alin, thank you so much for today's discussion. I learned a lot. I took notes. And honestly, you have such speaking about the right people, you have such a way of explaining things that are easy easy to understand and actually to use. So next time I receive a text message like I did in the beginning, I'll pay more attention not to transfer the money.
Perfect. Excellent. Thank you, Mirela. And again, I think we need to pay attention as consumer to this online. Um, we should not look at this as something that is being scary. We should consider it more like how should I put it? When you cross the street, yeah, it may be the risk of being, let's say, hit by a car or something like that. But the question is, do I look on the left side and also on the right side, to see are there any cars coming? That would be the way to move forward, yeah, and not to just immediately jump in, actually crossing the street, but just first take a glance left, right, and then seeing if the coast is clear, just go ahead. This is pretty much the same. Just pay attention to the risk and make sure that you have the right people, you have the right system, you have the, let's say, education, the necessary education, information, in order to make sure that you can cope through this process. Because again, digitalization is something that is fantastic. Imagine the time that we save just by clicking a button. But on the same side, if you don't have this kind of, let's say, awareness, it can cost us significant energy, time, and last but not least, money.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.